On Tuesday morning, President Trump told television networks his military was raring to go, threatening to destroy every bridge and power plant inside Iran. But hours before a 2-week ceasefire was set to expire, he switched gears, abruptly announcing an indefinite pause on military strikes. The immediate reaction was relief. The bombs have stopped falling, and Pakistani officials, who had been scrambling behind the scenes to mediate, publicly thanked Washington for buying them time. But behind that sigh of relief, the diplomatic machinery is completely stalled. Second-round peace talks scheduled in Pakistan never materialized. Empty tables wait in Islamabad, and Vice President J.D. Vance's planned trip to the region was quietly canceled. Because the conflict didn't actually end, it simply changed shape, mutating from active airstrikes into an invisible, slow-moving standoff over maritime shipping lanes and international trade. A ceasefire without a diplomatic off-ramp creates a deceptive calm. The shooting might have paused, but the structural conflicts driving both nations toward war remain completely unresolved. In the early days of this conflict, U.S. military planners reportedly targeted Iranian leadership, hoping to force a collapse of the regime. When that didn't happen, Washington's objectives shifted toward finding a face-saving exit. Enter Operation Economic Fury. The United States is now maintaining a strict naval blockade, using warships to cut off Iranian ports from the global economy. This map shows the exact mechanism the U.S. is using. By severing outbound export routes, the U.S. intends to bottleneck Iran's entire petroleum industry. The physical goal is to max out storage facilities on Karg Island, Iran's main export terminal. Looking at this capacity data, you can see the cascading financial pressure this creates. Once those storage tanks hit 100%, the excess crude has nowhere to go. That forces Iran to physically shut down its fragile oil wells, systematically starving Tehran of revenue. Washington has drawn a hard line. The warships stay in place until Tehran's fractured leadership can deliver a single, unified proposal to end the war. By weaponizing economic starvation, the U.S. strategy gambles that the prospect of total financial ruin will do what military force couldn't, compel Iran to surrender at the negotiating table. But Tehran doesn't view a blockade as a pause in hostilities. To Iranian leadership, choking off their ports is an ongoing act of war, rendering the terms of the extended ceasefire meaningless. And Iran has its own massive geopolitical lever to pull. This map highlights the Strait of Hormuz, the critical choke point connecting Gulf energy producers to the rest of the world. By halting international maritime traffic here, Iran matches America's economic pressure with the threat of global market chaos. The disruption to these shipping routes sends a panic through Gulf nations, whose economies rely heavily on oil exports. Ironically, this blockage forces global buyers to look for alternative suppliers, triggering a sudden spike in demand for crude oil shipped directly from the United States. Diplomatically, Iran's foreign ministry has drawn its own hard line, stating they will not send delegates to Pakistan or negotiate under the shadow of threats while U.S. ships surround their coast. They are also demonstrating that their threat to civilian shipping is highly active. Over the weekend, an Iranian Revolutionary Guard gunboat approached and fired on a commercial container ship near Oman, heavily damaging the vessel's bridge. At home, Tehran is projecting absolute defiance. State media broadcasts nightly pro-government rallies, prominently displaying ballistic missiles and advanced weaponry to their citizens. It is a strategy of matched escalation. Iran is leveraging the threat of global economic contagion, betting they can inflict enough pain on international markets to force Washington to drop the blockade. This creates a paralyzing diplomatic catch-22. As this diagram shows, Washington demands a unified peace proposal before they will lift the blockade. Meanwhile, Tehran demands an end to the blockade before they will even draft a proposal. Military analysts are now warning that this stalemate is evolving into a frozen conflict. A frozen conflict is dangerous because it looks like peace on the surface. The active bombing campaigns have ceased and cities are quiet. But the structural causes driving the war remain completely untouched. On the Iranian side, internal divisions make progress incredibly difficult. After significant losses to their command structure, the remaining leadership is fractured, making it nearly impossible for them to agree on a single diplomatic response. On the American side, the political goalposts keep shifting. Constantly changing demands from Washington make it difficult for negotiators to establish a consistent, reliable exit strategy. This leaves the entire region in an extremely fragile state. With heavily armed navies operating in close proximity, a single miscalculation or warning shot at sea could reignite active combat instantly. The absence of airstrikes is not the same thing as peace. Instead, these two nations are locked in a high-stakes Mexican standoff, where neither side can afford to back down, leaving the region and the global economy balancing on a knife's edge.